Please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we got everyone here. That's going to be here, so and we have a quorum, which is great. So first thing is to approve the agenda. Does anyone have any items, any changes to the agenda or any additions?
Move we approve the agenda as stands.
I'll second.
Okay, I got a motion by Dave Brusick to approve the agenda, second by Amy Jurek. There's no other comments. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 3-0. Resolution declaring a vacancy. We are so honored to have our esteemed city attorney here. Welcome, Scott.
Glad to be here.
And Mike, is Scott going to kind of walk us through, or do you want to kind of bring an introduction, whichever?
Let me set a little bit of the tone and then I'll turn it over to the city attorney. As you recall, on June 5th, Councilmember Jenna Tuma announced her resignation from the city council effective, Scott, I don't know if we figured out whether that's actually June 13th or 14th.
Excuse me, it's 14th.
That it was our understanding it was the 13th, but it's been reread and reconfirmed with her that it's effective June 14th. And because there's more than 2 years remaining on the unexpired term, which is a January 1 of 17 to December 31 of 2020, the council is eligible to make an interim appointment to the council seat, but will be required to hold a special election to formally fill the vacancy. And for that, we included a memo from the city attorney's office that I'll let Scott go through. And so in that process, the discussion tonight, I think on the first stage, and we'll let him talk about both elements, is the process and procedure to appoint an individual to serve in an interim capacity. We did include the process used the last time when Councilmember Jenna Tuma filled Mark Bartuszyk's seat because he moved outside the city limits. I believe that was in the fall of 2015 when that occurred. Then the second part is to talk about the requirements, options, and alternatives associated with either calling a special election or holding it in conjunction with next year's regular election. And so with that, I'll let him perform his legal role since he drove this far to come and talk to you, since he's the attorney and I'm not. So we'll let Mr. Reeves go through his memo with you and then try to answer any questions.
Okay.
I will jump in.
Mike, do you want to give him the microphone?
Thanks. And Mike really covered all the issues already, I'll be honest. You do have a memorandum from my office that discusses what you have here. You really have 4 steps. One is you have a vacancy now based on letter as well as on the individual Councilmember Tuma leaving residency here in the city. That's an automatic type thing under state statute as well as under our charter. So right now you have a vacancy. Your first step is to declare that vacancy. That's what you have before you tonight. The resolution does that. The resolution also basically says you're going to follow whatever procedure you need to do for the next 3 steps, which are 1, decide how you want to fill an interim appointment until such time as you hold a special election. Actually do that interim appointment, that's step 3. And number 4 would be decide when you want to do the special election. Since there's more than 2 years left in the remaining term, you have to have a special election. You appoint until you call a special election, which has to be at or before the next regular election, which would be in November of 2018. So that's really what you have. You can make an appointment as soon as you want to, and Mike noted you have materials in your packet that covers kind of the process you utilized before. You make that appointment until whatever time you decide to call that special election. It could be at any time you as a council want to do that. Could be next fall along with the school district, or as you see in the memorandum I gave you, a lot of cities wait until the next regular election to do that to save costs. And they appoint until that time, which the statutes, our charter both allow you to do. That's really what you have before you. Declare it today, decide what the process is that you want to do for an appointment, do that appointment, and then decide when you want to call the special election.
So those don't all have to be done today?
They do not. And
So really, the only thing we have to declare the vacancy,
Exactly.
and then obviously, if we want to kind of follow the procedure we did before, let staff know that that's what we'd like to do and get the notice out, and so people can fill out the application and do all
Absolutely,
that.
and the resolution really sets it up that way. It says you're declaring the vacancy and you're going to set an motion to do some interim appointment, and then we'll take steps to call a special election later. Those would both happen after your declaration tonight.
Okay. Okay, anyone have any questions for Scott or Mike?
I move to approve the resolution declaring the vacancy.
Second.
I got a second by Dave Brusick, a motion by Amy Jurek. There's no other comments or questions for Scott or Mike? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 3-0.
Can we not?
Amy.
Amy made the motion and David seconded.
Can we recommend we appoint, or go through the motions of appointing somebody, send out applications tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that should be your next step, is if that's what you're going to direct Mike. You have those materials there that you utilized before, and I think it makes the most sense to have some process. There is nothing statutorily or in our charter that says you're bound to some process, but what you've done in the past is what a lot of cities do, and it's a logical step to take. So yes, I would say if you want to do that, direct Mike to do that, get that going, and you can have a interim appointment before you as soon as you want to decide to make that appointment.
How much should we have, 2 weeks? Is that standard advertised?
There is no standard.
There is none on this.
You know, I've had councils that have already decided, they know they've got somebody they want to do, and they go that route. Others say, let's give everybody a week to put in something, or 2 weeks, 10 days to put that in, advertise it however you want to do. So it's really up to you, how long you want to go until you want that. I will say the caveat I have is, and there isn't anything statutorily, but talking with the Attorney General's office on other opinions, the idea is to try to appoint as quick as you can, to make sure you have a full complement of 5 council members.
Yes. Okay.
Well, the challenge we have timing-wise is that I think we've got the notice that's in your packet. We would need to make changes in the morning to try to get it included as an advertisement in this Thursday's newspaper. And so then the challenge becomes, if that doesn't come out till the 22nd, and you want to leave a couple of weeks to take applications, that would fall on Thursday, July 6th, or you do it at the end of the week, let's say July 7th. Your council meetings in July are July 5th and 17th, and so it just depends on the timing of getting those applications in, getting summaries to you, and then letting you start to look at that and decide when you want to set up interviews to handle that process.
Right. Well, I think the goal should be that we maybe make an appointment by that July 17th meeting. So whatever time frame, go back into that, Mike, you know, and,
Could we do like interviews that second week in July?
The week of the 10th.
yeah.
Week of the 10th?
Yeah.
And
Right.
then have it ready for the 7th?
And then we can make the appointment, depending on how many people. If we don't have anyone, then we have to beg Bauer, and Mitch is always in the background.
Well, then
He sat in the chair, he kind of liked it.
And I'd recommend we go 2 weeks. If it comes out this Thursday and we have them due July 6th, by the end of business, then we've got that Friday to try to take a look at putting together calls to set up appointments, assuming we know when you're ready to interview, and then it'll be scheduled for the following week. If we do it on Friday, then we can't begin to get that set up till the next week, and that may delay trying to get it ready for your action on the 17th.
Yeah.
So if you want to do it for 2 weeks, we can advertise from the 22nd with absent due on July 6th.
Yeah. Framework works.
And can we decide on the interview dates now, because that calendar gets tight for me? So are there other meetings then that second week? I know Park Board is, what other meetings are there?
Well, EDA, but that's always in the morning,
Okay.
If you look on your green agenda,
on the
On
bottom.
there?
So Park Board and EDA are the only two that week. And like I said, EDA meets in the morning, so that really wouldn't affect it. We wouldn't be doing any interviews in the morning.
If the day works.
What's the 11th
Wednesday
is?
evenings or-
11th is what, Tuesday?
It's a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm pretty much open, you know, if we want to try for a Monday. Does that work, the 10th?
Would that give you enough time to get them out to us to look over the weekend?
Well, we
Probably
could have
not.
them copied and ready to go on that Friday.
Or maybe
The question is whether we can get in touch with all of the applicants to have that ready to go
Well-
on that Monday.
It also comes into effect how many we have too.
But we can also try to add that in the notice that interviews are being planned for or scheduled on Monday, July 10th, so that they know in the application process when that's going to occur.
Or do we want to wait till the Wednesday,
Either one works.
the 13th? That way, maybe it'll give us some flex, give some more time to, again, it depends on how many number, if we only have one or two, we shouldn't take,
We have no way of knowing.
yeah. Why don't we shoot for the 13th? That way, it kind of gives us a little bit more room. Interview scheduled for the 13th, and then, based on the number, we can decide when we want to start the interviews. If we wanted it to start at 6 o'clock or at 5:30 or whatever.
Well, then I won't put a time for the 13th, we'll just indicate that interviews are scheduled for July 13th.
Yes.
That evening.
That evening sometime.
And then your intent is to appoint on July 17th so that we can have Scott prepare documents, so that all we have to do is when you're done on the 13th is to drop in a name in his resolution for appointment consideration on the 17th.
Sounds
Assuming
good.
you're ready to make that, or maybe wait and do that at the meeting, that's your choice.
Yeah, probably what we'll do is after the interviews, we'll kind of discuss and.
We'll leave a blank in there, and then that night of the council meeting, then you can.
Yeah, we'll discuss and kind of make,
At the meeting.
but we'll do the appointment at the meeting and vote on it that night, on the 17th. Okay, good. And then I think once we have a full council, and then we can kind of put it on the agenda. If it's all right, Scott, then discuss when we would like to have a special election.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, good. You don't need any motions or anything for that timeframe?
It might be a good idea just to have that, to say this is the process of cities. It's not imperative, but I think it's not a bad idea.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the process that we just discussed of having an advertisement in the New Prague Times for 2 weeks, and applications in by the, what did we say, the 6th?
Yes.
And interviews on the 13th for any interested parties to fill a vacancy.
I'll second it.
I got a second by Dave Brusick. There's no other questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 3-0. Thank you, Scott, very much. Next,
Here, before we leave that, is there any other questions you have as you read through any of those materials about the process in regards to a special election? The only thing we need to add that we had tried to prepare for is that the cost of our elections the last couple of years, 2014 was about $8,700, 2016 was about $9,200, except we also had a fee of just under $750 for renoticing to all the electors that we had changed the polling place from the CEC to the Catholic Church. And so that gives you the idea of what the cost of the special election is as you think about whether you want to call for that to occur as a special election or whether you want that timing to occur with the next regular election, just as to what the cost is.
right.
Anything else in your memo that you had any questions about as you looked at that?
Not
while
nothing.
Scott's here?
Yeah, nothing major that I would throw out there, other than to say that the last city I dealt with that did a special election outside of the norm, and had a charter requirement that it had to occur within 120 days, I think is what it was, which is an anomaly. I don't know any other charters that have that. Their turnout was exceedingly low, and there were 3 or 4 individuals that ran, and the highest vote total was about 150 votes or so, 160 votes, which is substantially less than what you normally would get at a regular election. So that's something to keep in mind. You get a depressed voter participation, those types of things, particularly when they're not at a regular election, or even at the school district, you probably would get a higher percentage of voters that would come than you would if you picked, say, August or September or something, the whole election, which you could do if we can meet the timing. And the memo, it has a kind of a list of what other timing aspects you have to meet. So you'd have to keep that in mind if you were going to select another date. But other than that, no, I think it's there, and it's up to you. What you want to do.
Well, even the election in 2018 is a non-presidential election, which means you have less voters also.
You're right, absolutely.
Than normal, so,
That's true.
Did you want to wait for Sean to, I'm in favor of waiting to the regular city election.
That's my suggestion, and I think Mike and I have talked about it, cost-wise and participation-wise, that's generally the better way, and most cities go that route.
Right. And that way, the person that we appoint isn't just here for 4 or 5 months. If they're not, they might get a better flavor of it, and then they say, hey, this isn't such a bad thing. And
Right.
so, okay.
Is there any special action that they need to take to make that decision, or do you have to prepare a resolution for them to?
We could put that into place, if that's what you're going to do. We would say in the resolution of appointment, I think that's a good idea to have, if that's what you're thinking, subject to what Sean wants to do and override that, which he can't,
Well,
because he's one of.
3 and 1
I
and
know what I was gonna say.
No,
But,
I think I would put that in the
We
resolution.
would, that's what we would do, is put it in there and saying that it will be to serve until such time as special election is called with the 2018 elections.
Right, and then they would get sworn in at the next meeting after that election. They wouldn't have to wait till January 1st.
No,
to be
that
sworn.
person, and if it was the same person, they would just take that same seat, but if it's a new person, they are sworn in as soon as you do the canvassing the election, that person gets sworn in, they do not wait.
Right,
That's true.
okay. Unless anyone else has a different opinion, I think we should put that in the resolution,
Okay.
that's our intent to go forward.
That's fine.
Okay,
Okay,
we will do that.
okay. Next on the agenda is the Charter Commission recommendations. Now, is this just, we have to recommend those, and then that list will then go to the district court?
In the adoption of the resolution, then Scott would forward that information, resolution, and a letter to the district court judge.
So the 3 names, Mike, you have on the resolution already have agreed to serve the next term to that 2019 term?
Yeah, let me clarify, just because I think one council member raised the question today, is that the answers behind the individuals in moving the term that was expired originally on December 31st of 15. Technically, we should already have taken action to have filled this, but it would now run from January 1 of 16 through December 31st of 19. Those members, Ben Bartuszczyk, Mary Klimp, and Sean, have all agreed to continue their terms if the council sees fit to effectively reappoint them, which left us with 2 gaps, the one for Paul Flick because he's deceased, and the one for Jim Cradaville, who did not want to reserve. The other 4-year terms are not due to expire until the end of this year. However, we have a vacancy technically in the one where Pat Scripture moved away. So therein lies the 3 positions. Jenna made contact with an individual, never got a response, so she had no recommendation for you. David, I know, tried to get in touch with a couple of people with no luck. So all I had left was, Mayor, you had indicated a willingness at the last meeting that you were willing to serve and that you had another name on your list.
Yep.
But that would technically still leave us with the shortage of 1 individual unless somebody else has names here this evening.
I think Amy has a name.
Well, Dwayne said as a past council member, he'd be willing to serve, but I don't know then if we can act, how does that work? I mean, because we can't act on it, can we, if
Yes.
I'm nominating a rel? That's
Yeah.
what I'm wondering. Well, Scott's here.
Yeah, interesting. Keep in mind, this is a recommendation that the council can make. The appointment is actually by the district judge, chief judge. It's not, you are not making an appointment here. You're making a recommendation, which the statute, we've talked about this before, because typically judges don't make that appointment unless some names are provided, which is what you would be doing here. So no, I don't see that as an issue. And I don't see that there's a conflict or, whether contract, whether monetarily or anything, that would be common law. I think it's a really hard stretch to call that as such, because the judge would make that appointment. No, I don't see it. So
Because I was
think
just trying to think of past council members who already understand how the charter works.
Yeah.
I can make the recommendation if you want, if you feel like there's any. As long as I know he's willing to serve,
Yes.
doesn't matter.
Okay, so we have 3 names then. So
It just depends on which slots you want.
switch slots. Does Dwayne want to go to 19 or do you want to move to
He
17?
did 17.
Okay, so we're going to put Dwayne Jurek into recommendation for the 17. Myself as one of the 19, and Bernie Wessler is another person that For the 19th. I have his spelling of his name here too, if you guys can have that.
What was his first name, Chuck?
Well, it's Bernard Wessler, Bernie. And his last name is spelled Wehsler.
And he was the 16, 19.
Yeah, he's another 19. Him and I are the 19, and Dwayne Jurek is the 17. The term ends. So should we make a motion that's to approve the resolution with the names attached?
That'd be great.
Okay? Nice idea.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to appoint Bernie Wessler.
No, you're not appointing individuals, you're just approving the resolution.
Resolution.
Approving the resolution, thank you. To assign Ben Bart, or, no,
You don't even have to say that, David.
okay.
Just
With
the
the names that
resolution.
are filled in as you've talked about.
Okay. Resolution accepting Bernie Wessler, Chuck, and Dwayne Jurek.
Yep.
Chuck Leacock.
Right, so, and I'll second that motion based on the recommendation that can be now sent to the district court, so. If there's any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. Very good. I suppose, Scott, you want to be involved in the next one here, too?
I can't tell you how much time we've spent the last week to get ready for this, but I do have to acknowledge his efforts and his firm's efforts in helping us get this done timely, so that we can get it to the school by the middle of the week, so that we can get a contribution by the end of June. You could throw away the first two lease documents that you have, the one that's attached to the memo, and then revision number 1, and you have in front of you tonight the second revision that you're formally seeing, even though we've had a couple of other gyrations in between. So if you go to the final one that says revised 619 in front of you tonight, that was on your council agenda, that's the one we'll be working from. In simple terms, what we're looking at is a 7-year lease with the New Prague Independent School District at $15,000 a year, running effectively from July of 2016 through July 1st of 2016 through June 30th of 2023, which covers 7 years at about $15,000 a year. The first year of the lease here to begin with is we're getting a little bit more because the construction project is right now, so we get a little bit more in the first year, whereas in the last year we get half of what our annual lease would be normally, but in the end we still get the full lease amount for the 5 years. Prior to this lease being developed, there has never been any lease. The school needed a lease in order for them to put together for their contributions to the capital improvements at the baseball stadium because of the school financing that they're using for lease agreements. They specifically had to have a lease. And so it was a matter of working with the city attorney's office, who today, his office, my office, and the school district and their attorney went through this. And I believe, with the exception of one final change that the school had asked for, we're not certain, that we didn't get a chance to talk to Sandy, that she thought was cleaning up section 1, but we believe the language that Scott has is probably a little bit more explanatory than what she wanted. We've agreed to all the other provisions contained within the lease. We'll have a certificate of insurance. They're not able to transfer the lease. They can display temporary signs at best, no permanent improvements there. They'll give us a schedule by February 1st of each year as to what they're intending to do from a scheduling standpoint. We've talked about what's considered generally good maintenance and repair, consistent with other publicly owned recreational baseball fields. They've been a good partner, so we have no issues there. The duty to repair, the use of the lease premises for purposes, and then a lot of the latter part of the agreement is the typical legal boilerplate that goes in at the city attorney's urging and recommendation to to deal with issues of events of default or waivers or indemnification insurance of those kind of premises. So unless I miss something in general, the gist of it is a 7-year lease at about $15,000 a year, except the first and the last years are modified slightly under the lease. So the timing is this will go to the school board next week for their approval at their June 26th meeting, and then we would have payment on the first year by the end of June.
Mike, how many games do they play typically?
Glenn could tell you that if he was here. I can't, just because that's not been a schedule that I've been involved with. They did start, some years they've started in late March, other years it's not until the 1st of April, and then they play till school gets out, again, depending upon how far they go in the playoffs. I wish I could honestly tell you. Glenn
I think
knows
they
that
play,
schedule.
home and away, somewhere between 20 and 30 games.
Well, Deb might know, I
That's
should.
what I would say.
Yeah, so, and if
She's
you figure
on
half
that
of them,
schedule.
if you figure half of them are at home,
Here,
so you're
half.
figuring, 10 to 15 games at home in that short spring. And again, it's all based on weather too, and, when the field's ready. I know they played the first couple games, I think they played out at Union Hill because the infield wasn't ready yet and that sort of thing, so.
Does this now, having a lease, anything with the joint powers, I know I just read through that, but does that conflict at all with having the joint powers? There was nothing in the joint powers about the ball field, was there? Or was
Yeah, and we specifically stated that the lease does not create a joint powers. This is not a joint
Okay.
powers situation. We did not want to do that because of insurance provisions, that we would have to get different insurance between both parties. Purchasing additional insurance would be a cost. It isn't necessary for the way this is set up. I mean, you can have commercial leases, which this is, that can be hundreds and hundreds of pages long. It's not necessary. It's another governmental entity you've worked with for decades that's worked fine. We kept it very simple. I mean, in all honesty, it covers the provisions. We did have that conversation today, as Mike said, and walked through it very quickly. They had made some suggestions earlier in the week or at the end of last week that we revised it some, last Friday. And they were not anything that were out of the realm of what we would be looking at. The protections are there for both the school district as well as the city. Even though you have a program that's being run by the school, the city still has its protections as well, just like you would have with anybody else that would come in and lease the property. So it's very straightforward. There's nothing there to try to be draconian or hide it or anything. It's a simple, straightforward governmental lease between two governmental entities that are working together. And it was to avoid having joint powers specifically, so we didn't have to have any insurance costs that would be above and beyond. We have to purchase that, so we don't have to do that here.
Good. And then you mentioned that their attorney blessed it also. So.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Any other questions for Scott? If not, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the resolution on the lease agreement with the Independent School District on the city's baseball facilities.
I'll second.
We got a second by Amy Jurek. If there's no other comments, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 3-0. Next, fireworks.
I'm gonna give a bit of an
Besides the ones we had at the last council meeting. No.
I'm going to give a bit of an overview, and then I'll let Mr. Paul Bush here on behalf of, it's the Legion, right, Paul?
Yes.
It's,
Well, on behalf of the Park Ballroom.
Park Ballroom. Let's make sure that's the American Legion Park Ballroom.
Yes.
Is the language that they've made the application to pick up where you heard the announcement that the fireworks might not be happening. We've worked with Paul and the American Legion, and they've since gone out and gotten some additional sponsors, and I'll let Paul talk about that. But they've made arrangements with RES Specialty Pyrotechnics, and so they've applied, made an application with the appropriate application, insurance and what have you. As soon as the fire chief signs off on that, I will, and so then the fireworks side of things is ready to go, and we have the insurance from RES. The American Legion Post 45 as kind of the sponsoring entity will also still need to provide us with a certificate of insurance as the umbrella agency coordinating the fireworks activities. And then the other condition that we would have with Jim's recommendation is just final approval from the school. They apparently have made arrangements, but the paperwork I haven't seen that gives final approval there. So because these are shot off on school property and people congregate on school property, and that is, we just wanted to make sure that with the event being held, is that the school has signed off on that. But as far as Paul working with other businesses and community individuals, I'll let him talk about what they've graciously agreed to step forward and help coordinate kind of at the last minute. So with that, Paul, and then he can talk about where he wants to direct people, if businesses, individuals want to make donations for the event, how they can go about doing that.
Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Yes, thank you, Mike, Mr. Mayor, Council. The Park Ballroom Board has approved the 4th of July event to be held 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. on July 3rd at the usual place that's been held for many years. Any businesses or individuals who would like to make a donation can do so at the State Bank Fireworks Fund. It's strictly a fund that is, any monies left after this year will be a nest egg for fireworks next year. If the ballroom does it, or if some other business or company wants to come ahead, those funds will be there. A check can be also sent to the American Legion at 300 Lexington Avenue South. You know, your larger sponsors are going to be recognized in the future. Jeff Belzer has graciously come forward and stated they would cover the cost of the fireworks itself. The ballroom will cover all the other expenses, insurance, fees, mosquito spraying, and any other things that are coming up. We're hoping to have some vendors there, but this being short notice, we only have Kona Ice right now that's committed to us. Everybody else is booked up, so that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Mike, I got a question. Obviously, where the fireworks are in that, the fields right across, that's actually owned by St. Wentz, right, Dave?
No, right.
Yeah, it's St. Wentz owns for the cemetery all the way to the road.
I'm sorry, the school leases that property.
Okay, so I didn't know if you would have to have St. Wentz's approval, or
No,
is this because the school's leasing it?
Correct.
Okay.
That's where,
They're not leasing for all of it that the consumers, participants look from. They do go into the cemetery. That is not leased by the school.
the lion's share of on the west side of Columbus, south of County Road 37, where people have congregated, has historically been leased by the school district where those recreational activities have occurred.
Right, but I think today's point, people sit up in the cemetery
But in
on the
doing
hill.
that, in doing that, it's very difficult for us to attempt to go out. And so we've tried to primarily in our work with that, because the fireworks are shot off on school property and the majority of that open field is leased by the school. That's all we've attempted to take action on. That there's no way that we could go and try to get all of the surrounding properties where people sit and congregate for this event to do that. And so from that perspective, we've just concentrated with the school district.
Probably doesn't matter.
Right.
So, Paul, how did you get RES Specialty Pyrotechnics? They're usually so busy over the 4th.
Well, when I found out that there was not going to be fireworks in town, and there was a 18-year-old young man, Noah Steffens, who is in the National Guard, and he thought that it really wasn't right. So actually, he touched base with Seska Insurance like an hour before I did. But I got the phone numbers. I called RES Fireworks out by Union Hill. I told them who I was, what my plan was, and Irv Harmon is the manager out there. He said, "Paul, I'm a new Pragueite." He says, "We'll make this work." And actually, he took me on a tour of the place, which is very impressive.
Yes.
Good.
Well, good. All right, well, very excited news. Anyone have any other questions for Paul or Mike?
But Paul's efforts are to be commended for picking up the
Yes.
pieces and running with them at the last minute.
I tell you, there's been a lot of thumbs up from the people and the businesses here in town as far as this happening, so I thank you.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thank everyone at the American Legion Post 45 Ballroom too from us. Anyone have any other questions? If not, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the request to hold the fireworks on July 3rd, giving support from the New Prague Police and the New Prague Fire Department.
With the two conditions.
With the two conditions that,
Insurance and
the insurance and that, yes.
I'll second.
Okay, I got a second by Amy Jurek. If there's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Pass 3-0. Thanks again, Paul. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Not only for this, but everything you guys do for our community. Ken, you've been kind of quiet. It's good to see you come up to the microphone.
Well, I'll be up for a while now, so 3 in a row. All right, the next item on the agenda is consideration of a limited use agreement with the Slam City Corporation for a feature motion picture titled Soul Drift. I do want to call attention, we actually have the director in the audience, Michael Vincent, should you have any questions for him. But I'm going to give a kind of a general overview of the agreement and kind of our policy. If you recall, back on May 1st, the council adopted a policy that adopted the application and the fees for motion picture filming within the city. And it was basically based on the fact that we knew this application would be hopefully coming forward, and here it is tonight for your consideration. So we did receive on June 5th, or with a memo dated June 5th, the application for the feature film. The attached letter from Jamie Osborne, who's actually the feature production coordinator, is requesting a waiver of the $1,000 feature film application fee, and then also up to a $5,000 waiver in police service resource fees, and also noting that part of the exchange for those fees would be the city obtaining use of film footage for reasonable purposes, as is noted in the agreement, including but not limited to promotional materials. And that was something I had talked about in my meeting with Mr. Vincent, potential for promotional videos that we may look to do at some point in the future. So that is in the agreement as written. Staff does specifically want to note that the waiver of the fees would not necessarily be consistent with other public events that the cities had to monitor. Most recently, the Rotary's Pivo Prosim Beer Dabbler event, where they have been asked to pay for police time to monitor that event. I do want to note that staff believes there will not be additional costs for Public Works Department. Any barricades or cones that are needed during the filming for the 13-day time period, we can drop those off in a truck. Really no additional time to do that. What could be, and what Chief Garrett has noted as minimal cost would be police staffing for those days of filming. And the reason majority of the cost is brought down is we'll be training a couple of officers during this time, so we'll have extra bodies around during the time this would be filmed in the month of August. So anticipating pretty minimal actual expenses related to the film. One other city that's been noted is potentially being considered for these particular scenes for the movie is the city of Maple Lake. Maple Lake has a rebate program. Basically their program, they have a $100 application fee, so $900 less than our filming application fee, and then they provide rebates up to $7,500 in production costs to the city. So that is their program, and kind of, I guess we could say what we're competing against for this particular film. Staff is recommending, however, not waiving the fees and not waiving the police costs based on our adopted policy for the movies and on past practice for other private events, specifically most recently the Rotary event. Staff does note, however, that should the council find that there is a demonstrated public benefit derived, particularly in this case from the footage being provided that we could use for promotional purposes, that the application fee and costs incurred could be waived and that is noted in the agreement. Basically, the highlighted yellow areas note the waiver and the reason for the waiver, should you find that appropriate to do so, or some other variation on the waiver amounts, should you deem appropriate. Right now, as noted, it's waiving the full $1,000 application fee, should you consider that a benefit, and then up to $5,000 in incurred costs for city services. So that was just the optional language. Staff is not recommending to do that. As I noted, Mr. Vincent, the director, is here again tonight, and they have reviewed the agreement, and Scott's office also helped put this together as well. So,
For the council's benefit, maybe it's appropriate to invite Mr. Vincent up to talk a little bit about the film to help the council understand that, so that you can better understand whether, number one, you understand what the possible movie potential is. As we indicated, that we are potentially in competition with another community. And as we take a look at being able to utilize that footage for economic development purposes or marketing purposes after they get done, there may be a benefit and value to us in your consideration of either waiving the application or the other public law enforcement fees. So with that, Mr. Vincent, if you'd like to come up, give the council a little bit of an idea of what this entails. It's not very often that we have this opportunity, and so maybe you can help them understand why you're interested in New Prague and a little bit about what this film might be about. You
can pull that. I need to feel so short all the time. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Michael Vincent, and I am the film director for Soul Drift. So when we looked at two communities, for me it was really important to find a small town community, because that's the kind of the synthesis of the algorithm of the film. And I wanted a small town that wasn't a dying town. I wanted to look energetic and lively and healthy. I didn't need to paint that message in this story. That was just the opposite. So we looked at, I defaulted to New Prague. My team, of course, was looking for the best deal. So when you have producers involved, they are always looking to keep costs. Maple Lake has obviously a lower fee. They have a $7,500 fee for city staff, and then they have a 15% up to $50,000, just to correct that. So you know the competition on money spent. So as our team comes in, we obviously want to be a part of the community and patronize the local community as much as we can. People eat, drink, and be merry after a day's hard work. So we certainly don't want to discourage that. New Prague's a little bit unique for me, because I'm not really technically ever been a New Prague resident, but I've had a lot of my life down here. I lived up at this other little place called St. Patrick, and it was really kind of nice for me being Irish Italian, because I could go to the bar, go to church, and still make it home, because I was very close, and I could do it all in walking. So take that for what you want to see of it. But New Prague has always been the place we would come to for groceries. Obviously, our phone service here was, while we lived down here, and then regretfully, Chameleon, a favorite haunt of my daughter and I, is gone. But I'm sure we'll find something else. And a lot of the locations that are in this film are places I tend to frequently visit, like the bakery, a little bit more than I should. But so I think New Prague offers just that great, healthy, quintessential small town. It's got a nice diversity of locations, which makes it a little easier for us to come in and shoot. When we met with staff and my team tried to work some of these deals, we walked in and there was no film permit, and so there was a lot of scrambling. And to everybody's credit, I think they put a good deal together. And I think what we're looking at is just asking for a one-time waiver, since part of what we're doing created a lot of this in the first place. But I also think we're bringing some good positives. The footage is obviously not a problem, and we certainly want to do whatever we can to give you some usable assets out of the film. But the other thing you have to remember is I have a little over 47 crew members. That's just crew. That's before cast shows up. So when they come in, we're renting one of those big, huge machine, kind of, I call like an office, or like 10 by 40 something, and we're putting it over in the building or the property across from Dairy Queen. but they're still gonna be free to move around. We're not chaining them to the building. So we're hoping while they're in town in August that they're gonna get a chance to see New Prague. Most of the people ironically know of New Prague, but they may not have necessarily traversed. There are a few that are from the area, so they kind of have a heads-up advantage, but we're hoping that turns into some good economics for the city while we're here, not just simply us coming in and shooting. We are committed to about 2 weeks, just a titch over, so we'll be here for quite a bit. It's not just simply a 1-day or 2-day adventure, so we have quite a few shots. A lot of the shots are on private parties, so we don't anticipate needing city resources. I talked to the chief directly, and I just said, look, we're trying to just minimize this down because we do know there's a few spots where we could be on some busier roads and we really would feel more comfortable for safety of the cast and crew and for the community, just have a squad nearby. We don't anticipate using $5,000. I think when we were doing the math, it was a little over half, but we just wanted to make sure we had enough. After that, the production will gladly pay, the $75 per day or per hour rate or whatever it was. I can't remember the
Officer and squad, yeah.
Yeah, the officer and squad. We have warning lights coming in to do warning lights and signage, so our impact on city staff with the public works, we would imagine would be pretty low level, but I think it's just nice to have some of that local connection. We have to be prepared for everything because we're static here so long. Some of the locations we're in and out so quick that by the time the public really figures out where we're at, we're already gone. Here, we're not so fortunate. So we obviously have to be really careful on how what we communicate to the public beyond, but we certainly don't want it to be, an isolated event either. So we're just trying to manage that.
So obviously, these are during the week. What times of days are you planning to do the filming? Is it like starting at 7:30 in the morning till 9 at night, or?
Yeah, so typically the way a feature film works is the crew shows up before actually principal starts. So we would anticipate crew members showing up onto location. So what we'll pick on the donut guy, the donut shop, because I like the donut shop, but I couldn't get down here fast enough tonight. But at any rate, they'll show up. We usually say they'll come in early birding at about 7 o'clock to start getting things set up and figuring out where the shots are. My DP will start looking at his shots. Audio will start preparing for the noise and whatever is around. We've done a lot of pre-production work already in town, and you probably haven't even noticed us around unless somebody said somebody was out there taking pictures or whatever. But then cast usually doesn't arrive until after 10, and it really depends. Typically in a film, if I'm trying to get a morning shot, we're shooting toward the end of the day because of the way the sunlight works. So we really don't necessarily start shooting until around noon, and then it's just kind of a race to sunset. And then if we have a night shot, so I think all of the shots that we're shooting in town, I believe, are all day shots. So just gonna kind of scanning my memory on them. We did get permission from NDOT to control Highway 13 as it comes through, and right now they've suggested to have a highway patrol squad there, but the chief was kind enough to offer New Prague Police assistance as well, so we've conveyed that. So I don't think we may not even get the highway patrol officer to show up, but we'll notice them of the day. So we're just trying to do a lot of fast in and outs. Otherwise, they're indoor shots, but they should be during the day. But crew will arrive early. They'll be setting up. They probably won't really notice what they're doing. A lot of it is just getting into position and figuring out where the camera marks are going to be, and then we'll get ready. And then when we shoot, for example, if we take a shot, using the donut shop, that's an outside shot to establish the kid coming up in his car and then going into the interior where the actual action scene is, where the dialogue is being recorded. There's no outside dialogue, but I do want to get a shot facing to the south side, that side of 13, along where the old movie theater and that is, of the kid, of one of the cast members pedaling a bike down the sidewalk. So I'm looking for, a lot of the shots that are on the outside are going to be more establishing the community so that we're tighter in. If we're at the Clark gas station, we'll be tighter in on those shots, so we'll be less out into the roadway, but we'll need to get those establishing shots. And that's kind of where we're just trying to be a little extra safe. In my viewpoint, it's better to be safe and not have anybody injured than to just try to go by on the slim. But that's the long answer to your question. So I think in the application we did, Jamie put in a pretty big window. I think it was like 7 o'clock to, I can't remember, so I can look in there, but let's see the dates. But they
I
usually
think you
try
put
to.
7 a.m. to 2 a.m.
Yeah, so they just put a big window in because they know we're just asking for, I'm gonna be in bed too, just so you know. I'm not gonna be shooting that late, but it could happen, I guess, you never know. But typically, all of these shots are day. Trying to think if we actually even have a night shot in town. And I just don't, even the interior shots are all day lit. So you'll probably see more commotion between that post-noon hour and probably 5 or 6 is where when we're on location, is where it'll be really obvious that we're there, because you won't be able to hide everything.
And are you doing any aerial footage?
Yeah, so we do have a fairly sophisticated, thank you, reminding me of all of this stuff. We do have a fairly sophisticated drone coming in, so we've already applied for permits. That's to the FAA, although we'll never really be high enough to actually technically require a permit, but we still have to serve notice with an application. And that drone is an 8-blade drone, so it's like the length of this thing here in a big circle. So it's a pretty massive drone, and we're shooting everything on 4K cameras, so they're professional cameras, are a little heavy. That drone shot, we'll have a couple of drone shots, but we're actually not, the only main drone shot we're doing is on 13. And then we're gonna pick up some, I wanna get one in Memorial Park, for sure. Other than that, we'll probably be down with sticks or tracks, so tracks are just dolly tracks or stick hams. But we'll try to get a few, and we can certainly catch some extra ancillary. So as we talk to staff, if somebody at staff says, hey, could you do this? And if we're already geared up, for us to do a little bit extra, it shouldn't be much of a problem. I just can't guarantee it'll get in the movie.
So, do you have a theme to this movie, or how'd you come up with the term?
Yeah.
Soul Drift?
Yeah, so the story is basically using a Karate Kid algorithm, but the core demographic in the film are young adults coming of age. So Colton, who's the hero in the movie, he actually lives in this small town. His dad is a sheriff in this small town, and mom is gone, and so he's just graduated from high school and is trying to figure out what to do with his life. His 2 buddies, one is coming back from boot camp training, and the other one's getting ready to ship off to college. So it's almost time appropriate when we're shooting, which is sort of weird, but worked out really well. And we kind of follow our hero as he sort of figures out what he wants to do, and in the process, a mentor enters into the storyline, and he happens to be a former race car driver, and so he sees this kid being potentially talented and starts to mentor him along, and he ends up going along and winning, and takes him to the final race sequence way out, which we'll be shooting at the Texas Motor Speedway. So it's really a coming of age. It'll be a PG-13 film asset, so we'll go above that. But it's a lot of cars. There actually you will see a few hot cars coming into town. Some old, we got a couple of people who are bringing in their old 1970s Chevy Chevelle SS. I mean, I've seen the cars and they're just gorgeous. They look like they were just built a week ago. So a few of those will float through as we include them in the shots. But coming of age, just pretty much a mainstream film. We're not trying to do anything crazy. We're shooting here at Brainerd International Raceway, downtown St. Paul, with a race scene, which has never been done. That's a lot more city council meetings, let me tell you. It's been a long haul, but they've been a great city to work with. And then we are shooting at the Fort Snelling Cemetery. So we have a scene there, so we got permission to shoot there, which was a little bit of work, but it was fun to get that approval. So,
Does your film acknowledge, or do you know that you're just in a small town, but you can't necessarily tie it?
Yeah, hire this guy as a salesman right here. We typically, the way the film is written up, when we went to St. Paul, for example, we didn't say whether it was going to be in St. Paul or not. We asked if they would have a problem with it, and of course they wanted it to be in there, so we agreed to do a couple of establishing shots. In New Prague, when you look through this community, unless you're really from the area, you wouldn't know necessarily the establishing shots. So we're not really sure where we could do that. The cathedral in St. Paul and the Capitol kind of give it away very fast. Here it's a little bit more tricky, but we're not opposed to it. And certainly in our outro credits on the film, we will issue a special thanks to the city of New Prague as well. So it'll be in the film print.
But you should know that Lyle's Bakery is fairly well known.
That it is, and so we probably, and we're not hiding that, that's for sure. I went from him to getting a deal done with him to the Clark station, and I think it was like a Kevin or a Keith over there.
Kevin Crawford.
Yeah, and so he asked me, he goes, well, what are you paying me? Because I said, well, how much do you want? Because he said, yeah, that sounds great. And I said, well, over there, all I had to do is agree to buy a bunch of donuts, so I'll tell you what, I'll give you a bunch of donuts, and he's like, deal. So, yeah, it's, for us, if we can think of a credible way to establish it. One of the things I've been talking to Ken, I had asked if there was a way to keep the July 4th flags out a little longer on the main street for the filming of that, because we do have obviously we have a person who goes in the military, we end up with a scene at Fort Snelling, so we do have an undercurrent of patriotic. My mom was a Marine, my dad was in the Navy, so we're trying to push a little bit of an undercurrent through there. There might be an opportunity to do I don't know how complicated it is or if the city does it, or if there is one, a banner across the way, because once we do that establishing shot, it'll be definitely seen. So, that might be something we could discuss, too, so.
I think we may have the guy in the audience that can.
Yeah, I heard that. So that's why I gave him I pat him on the back because I wanted to talk to him afterwards, but then I gave him a nice static electricity charge, so it may not be so amenable, but we'll see. So, but I think it's a good solid film. It does have distribution, so we're not making the movie with the hope that we can sell it. We've already got other people who are trying to buy into the distribution, so the film distribution, obviously, world is very complicated, but we already have VOD, DVD, and we've got a couple companies buying to get the theatrical rights. So we're pretty excited about that, if we can pull everything together.
And the film would come out when?
So it's slated for 2018. We have to have it all done for our distributor by November. There'll be a premiere in Hollywood, and there'll be a premiere in Minnesota as well. So people will definitely be invited to that. And I actually think, and I can't remember the kid's name, but you never know if they show up. But I think we're casting a kid from New Prague into the film. So my casting agent sent me a text, but then failed to let me know who it was. So, it's all those details that seem to slip through. They almost assume I know everybody. So, yeah, it's pretty exciting. I think it's kind of neat for me. I grew up in St. Paul, so I'm a Minnesota kid anyways. So to bring a feature film at this level to the cities, the one thing we found out from the Minnesota Film Board is that since 2010, our film will be the second largest feature film production in Minnesota. So a lot of commercials, but not feature films. So we'll see if we can change that curve, but one at a time.
Yes, okay.
So as you probably heard, and I think I have to applaud Ken, coordinated all of our staff efforts with Public Works, Public Safety, with Mr. Vincent and all of his staff, that as you heard, is that our recommendation is formatted under existing council policy. But if you heard enough positive things and possibilities there that you think would be beneficial to the community, then you could certainly approve the limited use agreement with the waiver of the application fee and the staff costs, if you saw that there's enough of benefit to the community up to the values that have been talked about.
Anyone have any other questions? Okay, well, I'm gonna make a motion waiving the application fee and waiving the first 5,000 of cost.
But approving the agreement.
But approving the agreement with those stipulations.
I'll second it.
Okay, I got a second by Dave Brujek. Any other comments?
Well, I'm not really in favor of waiving the fees, but I can see the benefit of, as we have our new website and using the publicity, so that would be the only reason I would be in favor of doing that.
Yeah, and I'm on the same mindset. I know the EDA is also looking for improving their web pictures and things like that to enhance really what New Prague is about. So, you know, that's the reason for my motion, so. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 3-0.
Thank you, have a great evening.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Yes, he'll keep you posted.
Yeah.
I won't, but.
So, I gave it to you. I think they're still trying to figure it out, but yeah. Next, Ken. I assume this is more information than,
Yeah, so I don't know how much the council wants to talk about it, but based on our meeting regarding the fence and then leading into discussion on the exterior storage of recreational vehicles, and that whole step of discussion, I just wanted to provide, I think it was Councilmember Ryan that brought up, maybe we should revisit this issue with the storage of these vehicles and items, you know, boats and RVs and fish houses, that type of thing. So all I did was put in the packet the summary of what we adopted back in 2015. There was discussion at the time, we only allowed up to, I believe it was 24-foot recreational vehicles that could be in a yard. They could only be there during seasonal time periods, and then after that, they basically had to be put in the backyard. We didn't have any provision to offer anything larger, so we had a lot of people that came to the hearings wanting to keep larger vehicles. Planning Commission recommended that nothing over 40 feet be allowed. The RV in question was not over 40 feet that the house we're looking at. And then the ordinance itself was basically meant to encourage people to store things in their backyard areas, which in the case of the item in question was in the rear yard. It just so happened we had a unique situation where the rear yard of the home was basically what the front yard of some townhomes were looking at due to the conditional use permit that was issued back in the early 1990s, which was a very unusual situation. So I have not personally received any complaints of any magnitude about our exterior storage. You still get that argument, and we hear it occasionally that people can afford an RV, they should be able to afford to put it in a shed out of town. And that's kind of the number one thing we hear regardless. And that, we heard that during the public hearings, and we still get that. But, you know, as far as actually needing different regulations or additional regulations to add to what we have in our ordinance, I really haven't heard any complaints on that. So I don't recommend any changes, but I just wanted to put it back in front of you to show what we did. It was back in 2015. I know Councilmember Ryan was not on the council at the time it was adopted. So I guess I'll leave it at that. If you have any other questions or concerns about that.
yeah. Well, I kind of agree with you. I mean, I think we addressed it. And, you know, had the planning commission, I know we directed them to look into it, came back to council. At that time, the council approved the recommendation of the planning commission, and you know, I agree with you. I haven't really had a lot of complaints that, you know, this just happened to be an unusual circumstance with, you know, the townhomes having front, you know, it might not even been an RV. They might, you know, if a guy just had a fish house back there and stuff, could have still been the same problem. But unless anyone else has anything else, I don't see us revisiting it right now, in my idea.
No, I find no problems with the ordinance as it is written now. You're always gonna have, I think, issues come to the council or come to the planning commission. Somebody doesn't like this, somebody doesn't like that. I don't think we'd had an issue with this particular one, had it not been for that conditional use permit where somebody's front yard is facing another person's backyard. I think if those two units hadn't been there, this would not have been an issue. So I think what we developed, or what the planning commission developed in 2015 is very reasonable. I for one don't want to change it. I think it's, you put the time in, you did good work. And it can't satisfy everybody.
Yeah, I think it's been working very well, so.
I think if you're gonna do that, you know, you might, people are gonna start thinking, well, New Prague has too many, there's like a restrictive covenant clause in some homeowner agreements, and then you're gonna wind up with a lot of complaints. I don't think this is.
So to close this tonight in light of that discussion, unless there's further, do you want to just take an action that you would not seek to undertake any further ordinance review at this time?
That's my feeling.
I agree.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion, Dave?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we take no further action on the zoning ordinance amendment done in 2015.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Dave Bruce, second by Amy Jurek. Any other further comments? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Pass 3-0. One more, Ken. You said you had 3.
I do.
We're moving right along. Mitch, you'll be in Detroit Lakes before you know it.
So we have a request from Kwik for the filing of the plat of New Prague Kwik edition. We have a 90-day filing period for final plats we filed from the day they're approved. This one was April 3rd it was approved, meaning that period ended on July 3rd. Kwik is working towards getting the plat filed. There was some contamination that they are working on clearing, or they're not working on clearing, but the seller is working on clearing on the site. And then they're also working through getting the plat reviewed through the county, who's busy obviously with the number of plats. So that has delayed getting this to the point where we can actually execute it and get it recorded. So they initially, when we put this together late last week, they wanted a 28-day extension. The ordinance, subdivision ordinance provides for a 90-day extension. Actually, Scott and I discussed, why are we not doing the full 90 days? Well, they specifically asked that they wanted 28 days to show the seller that they were moving diligently to close on the property and get this wrapped up. They came back to me today and said, you know, well, actually, we need 58 days. So that is the revised letter and revised application. I again asked, why don't we just do the 90 days? No, we specifically don't want any more time than what we need, so I hope they don't come back again. But they are asking till the end of August 31st now.
So they're asking for a specific 58
Yeah,
days.
I suggested we
versus-
just do 90 days, because that's what we could do, and if they file it within 3 days, so be it, and if it took 89 days, so be it too. So, go figure. So the resolution is,
But
that
now,
is
Scott, do we
revised.
have to do that, or can we give them 90 days?
The council has the discretion to give 90 days if you so choose. Yeah, I mean, all that's been requested is, I guess, 58, 59 days here, but, and Ken and I did talk about it, I said, well, why would you not give 90 days? But apparently they had a reason. So
They were very specific about
Yeah.
that. And that's what I said, and then they came back, well, they're still not asking for 90. No, we want to have it very specific to that.
Yeah.
I think it's more important their request. I personally think just saying the full 90.
But
it's
they
not
want
gonna
to, they
hurt.
want to see the motion for that date so that they can,
That is what they have requested.
okay.
Can they request another delay?
They could.
I don't know.
It's arguable, it's, you know, and a lot of times you say no. I mean, it's, the idea is we gave you the extension, now you're actually varying from your extension provision, which is really the 90 days. That's what the ordinance says. That's why I responded to Ken right away, well, why not just the 90 days to do it? You know, it's something you have to cross at that point in time, you know, cities typically try to work, and city councils want to make these things work out. So, you know, yeah, I'm sure we'd find a way to get you, if there were further days, we'd get the council there if that's the request. But it just seems a little odd. I don't, that's why I was saying 90 days, put 90 days in there and call it good.
But we can change. I would make a motion to approve the resolution with the 90 days. Just so
Yeah,
we
I
don't
don't
have to
believe it
go
hurts
through it
anything.
again with staff time and everything else.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion by Amy Jurek, second by Dave Brusick to approve the extension to the 90-day window, and whatever day they want to tell their buyer, or, you know, is fine, but We just want to make sure that it doesn't put them in under stress, so.
Mhm.
Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, pass 3-0.
So in your resolution, last whereas and now therefore, that date of August 31st will change and we'll calculate the 90 days and insert
Right.
it for final execution.
Right. And you can explain to them that the theory behind why the council made that decision.
Council wanted to protect them from their own.
That's right. We didn't want to have to go through any legal jargon for them to come back for another 15 days or something like that, so. Next on the agenda, consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions, issues, or anything in the consent agenda? If not, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second by Dave Brusick. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, we're already to the miscellaneous part. Patrick?
If you haven't been by, the 1923 building, old high school, is pretty much all done.
Oh, I haven't been by it. Thank you. Mitch,
Nothing.
enjoy the rest of your vacation.
I will.
Ken?
Nothing.
Mike?
As an update, we were thinking we were gonna have the senior development project on your council or HRA agenda tonight after this meeting. However, they met with city staff and the city engineer on Wednesday dealing with some issues associated with their site and the water table issues. That does not appear that it's gonna be an impediment, but they were working on potential changes to revisions to Exhibit F, which outline the various parameters of the various TIF eligible items. And so they wanted time following that meeting and the solutions that they talked over with city staff to make those revisions, which we hope to have by tomorrow. And as such, they are likely requesting that the HRA hold their special meeting next Monday, June 26th. Reason being is that in order to take and be able to file all of our TIF documents that you adopted earlier this year, which sets forth the base value for the vacant property, as well as all of the TIF projections, tax increment numbers are based on the existing 2017 tax rates. If we don't file that by the end of June in the Seward County, then we're subject to those numbers changing in 2018. And so I had hoped to have had conversations with the developer today. I did on Friday, and he thought things went well on Thursday, but they were trying to finalize some numbers to include in that, which meant we then had to change some other dates and that within the agreement. And I said I couldn't commit to that until I talked to you this evening, and since they weren't ready to go tonight, that would be a special meeting of the HRA, and I didn't know what people's summer vacation schedules were. So the question would be is whether you wanted to go at 6 p.m. Next Monday, June 26th, if they get everything submitted to us timely this week. I don't expect it to be a very long meeting. That's the only action you have is the approval of the development agreement between the city HRA and the development group. All of the general terms and conditions you're mostly aware of, and we would have summaries of the external mock-ups of the building, the site plan, a summary from Michaela Hewitt, who's been involved with us in the project, as well as a summary of the potential major terms affecting the city prepared by one of the attorneys in Scott's office. So you would have all of that information in that packet ahead of that meeting for your consideration.
Does 26 work for everyone?
And you said 6, so it'd be utility commission stuff.
Yeah.
It is,
either
it
done by-
is, but
either
I
done.
just didn't, but you're planning at 6.
Yeah.
Subject to whether it's 6:37, that's your choice. I was just trying to keep it early so that you didn't lose out on the rest of the night.
I'm available, so.
It's fine with me.
David?
Well, I'll make myself available.
Okay. And we'll make sure Sean too, so something comes up, we'll make sure Sean's here.
What I will do is that as you potentially look at that, is I'll be absolutely certain is that that's a go, that we won't have it scheduled and then have something happen at the end, is that it'll either be scheduled because we're absolutely certain that it will occur or we won't schedule it.
Okay, just keep us abreast of that. Anything else, Mike?
No.
Scott, you got anything for us?
I do not, nothing further.
Deb?
I don't have anything,
No.
Deb? Amy?
when is the next, Main Street project meeting?
The cities group, the citizens group?
Yeah, do we
Tomorrow.
know? Oh, it's tomorrow?
With our stakeholders, you mean?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
the stakeholders.
Yeah,
meeting
tomorrow.
Tomorrow, all right.
What time is that?
3 to 5.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, I got a couple quick questions. Mike, I noticed, and maybe you don't know, I was hoping Glenn was gonna be here, that we were paying the seal coating and for the roads in the past. Does that mean they're all done?
Yeah, generally you wouldn't submit
Okay,
that unless.
that's what I thought. I mean, I know the, like, 10th is done and,
I don't know if there's a reservation that he pays, let's say 90% of that or 95% of that, and then to make sure that everything else gets done for final payment is typically how we work that. But yeah, generally the seal coating is done and they've swept up most of that already.
okay. And then the only other thing, I want to reiterate that I will be representing the council on the golf board since Jenna's gone, and Amy is gonna do the planning commission. So just make sure that she gets those packets, and I get the golf board packet, obviously this weekend before the meetings. I think ours is Tuesday and yours is Wednesday. So,
Are you making those nominations to the council? Or how,
well, I don't know,
when you're filling in?
we're kind of interim right now because we're just filling where Jenna was.
Okay.
My thought is, once we, get the 5th council member, then we can evaluate if this person has other preferences or
I'm
something.
certainly not questioning yours, that normally you make the recommendations, and the
Right.
council may approve that, but in this case, you're doing it as an interim move.
Right, just to make sure we have council representation on those boards and commissions until we have a full council, and then we can, evaluate all the people, so.
All right.
I just want to make sure that the packets
We'll
get
get packets.
to Amy and myself. I don't have anything else. If that's it, I guess I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Dave Brusick. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're all out of here. Thank you, everyone.